The empty chair across from you was the first sign that last night had not ended the way you thought. They had promised to meet you before work, but the coffee beside their seat had already gone cold. Your messages showed as read, yet no reply appeared. Then you noticed the small paper bag tucked beneath the table. Inside was the sweater you had left at their apartment months ago. It was folded carefully, with your spare key resting on top. There was no note and no explanation. Returning both things felt too deliberate to be an accident. You called once, but the call ended before it could ring. A minute later, one friend entered the cafe and froze when they saw the bag. They tried to hide their reaction by asking whether you had ordered breakfast. Their eyes kept returning to the key. When you asked what they knew, the friend sat down slowly. They said last night had become complicated after you left the rooftop gathering. They would not explain what complicated meant. Instead, they asked whether you remembered the final conversation near the elevator. You remembered enough to feel your stomach tighten. They had asked why you never spoke about the year before you met them. You had laughed and changed the subject because several people were listening. At the time, their silence had seemed temporary. The friend told you they had stayed behind after everyone else left. They had not been angry, at least not at first. They had walked around the rooftop, repeating one sentence you had said earlier that evening. You could not remember which sentence mattered so much. Then the friend placed a receipt on the table. It came from a 24-hour diner across town, printed shortly after 2 in the morning. 2 meals had been ordered, even though they claimed they had gone home alone. The second order was something only one person from your past would choose. You stared at the receipt until the numbers blurred. That person had no reason to know where the gathering was held. You had not spoken to them in almost 3 years, yet the friend confirmed they had arrived just after midnight. The rooftop gathering had been meant to celebrate your new job. Instead, someone from your old life had appeared after you left and asked to speak privately with your partner. Nobody knew who had invited them. Nobody had heard the full conversation. You stood up and reached for the bag, but the friend stopped you. They said there was one more thing you needed to understand before going anywhere. Your partner had not returned the sweater because they wanted to leave you. They had returned it because they were afraid they might ask you to stay. That made no sense until the friend explained what happened at the diner. The person from your past had shown them something that changed the meaning of your first meeting. It was not proof of betrayal. It was proof that your relationship may have started with a lie. Part 2. You first met them in a crowded community workshop almost 2 years earlier. You had both reached for the last empty chair, laughed, and spent the evening working at the same table. Later, you told them you had attended because one friend suggested it. That explanation had always seemed harmless. The truth was more difficult. You had seen them once before, sitting alone outside a hospital while rain soaked the pavement. You had wanted to approach them, but a family member arrived before you could move. Days later, you searched public event pages until you found the workshop they planned to attend. You never intended to frighten or deceive them. You only wanted another chance to meet naturally, without turning their worst night into an introduction. When they asked whether you had seen them before, you said no. That single answer became the foundation beneath everything that followed. The person from your past knew because they had helped you find the workshop. At the time, they thought the plan was romantic. Years later, after your friendship ended badly, the story became something they could use. Last night, they told it without the part that made you human. According to the friend, your partner listened without interrupting. They asked whether you had followed them anywhere else or collected private information. The answer was no, but the person from your past enjoyed watching doubt grow. They left before anyone could challenge the way they had framed it. Your partner then went to the diner alone, trying to decide whether the beginning erased everything that came after. The second meal on the receipt was not ordered for the person from your past. It was ordered for you. They had expected you to realize where they went. You remembered something from your first month together. During a late drive, they had pointed at that diner and said it was where they went when they could not make a decision. They told you that anyone who truly knew them would know where to look. Last night, you had forgotten. They waited there for nearly 2 hours. Each time the door opened, they looked up. When you never arrived, they ordered your usual meal anyway. By sunrise, the untouched plate had answered a question they had never asked you directly. The friend explained that your partner did not care only about the original lie. They cared that you still avoided difficult truths whenever other people were watching. At the rooftop, they had given you a quiet chance to tell them. You had treated the question like an inconvenience. You left the cafe and went straight to their apartment. The curtains were open, but nobody answered the door. Through the window, you saw packed boxes near the wall. They had been planning something before last night ever happened. A family member arrived while you were still standing outside. They did not seem surprised to see you. They said the boxes were not about a breakup. Your partner had been preparing to ask you to move in. That plan had existed for weeks. They had cleared half the closet and spoken with the landlord about adding your name to the lease. Last night was supposed to end with a private conversation after the gathering. Instead, it ended with them questioning whether they truly knew how your story began. The family member gave you an address to a quiet public garden near the river. They said your partner sometimes went there when the apartment felt too small. Before you could leave, they added one warning. Your partner had already made a decision, but they had not decided whether to tell you. Part 3. You found them sitting on a low stone wall beside an empty fountain. Your sweater was wrapped around their shoulders, even though they had returned another one that morning. They looked exhausted, not furious. That somehow made approaching them harder. You stopped several feet away and told the truth without trying to soften it. You admitted seeing them outside the hospital and searching for a place where you might meet again. You admitted lying when they asked whether you recognized them. Then you waited for them to decide what your honesty was worth. They asked why you never told them later. You said every passing month made the confession feel more dangerous. The happier you became, the more you feared losing what had grown from that first dishonest moment. Your answer did not comfort them. They stood and asked whether your love had always depended on controlling how they saw you. The question hurt because it contained more truth than you wanted to admit. You often waited until conflict passed instead of risking a hard conversation. Last night was only the clearest example. You told them the beginning was planned, but everything after it was not. You had not planned the long drives, the quiet dinners, or the morning they slept beside you in a hospital waiting room. You had not planned to trust them with the parts of yourself you disliked. They listened, but their face remained unreadable. Then they revealed why they had been outside the hospital that first night. They were not visiting someone sick. They had gone there to leave a relationship that had become controlling and deeply isolating. Seeing you later at the workshop had felt safe because they believed it was entirely accidental. Your hidden decision now carried a different weight. You had unknowingly entered their life at the exact moment they were trying to regain control of it. Even without harmful intent, you had taken away their ability to understand how the meeting happened. That was the part they could not ignore. You apologized without asking them to forgive you. For the first time, you did not explain your intentions as if they erased the result. You said they deserved to choose what happened next with every fact in front of them. Then you placed the spare key on the wall between you. They looked at the key but did not touch it. Instead, they asked about the person from your past and why the friendship ended. You had told them only that the friendship faded. The truth involved another decision you had hidden because it made you look weak. That person had borrowed money from you repeatedly and used private details to pressure you whenever you refused. You finally ended the friendship after discovering they had shared one of your family problems as gossip. You never confronted them publicly. You simply disappeared and hoped silence would protect you. Your partner realized last night was not a random act of honesty from an old friend. It was punishment from someone who knew you avoided open conflict. They had been given a true fact, but it had been delivered with the goal of causing maximum damage. Still, the truth itself remained yours to face. They finally picked up the key. For 1 second, you thought they might hand it back. Instead, they closed their fingers around it and asked you to walk with them. They had one place left to show you before making their decision. The two of you returned to the rooftop where the gathering had taken place. Morning light exposed overturned cups and decorations moving in the wind. Near the elevator stood a small table you had not noticed the night before. On it was a sealed envelope with your name written across the front. Inside was a copy of the apartment lease with space for your signature. Beneath it was a short list of practical plans you had discussed but never completed together. They had been ready to build a home with you. Now they wanted to know whether you could build one without hiding whenever the truth became uncomfortable. Before you could answer, the elevator opened. The person from your past stepped onto the rooftop, holding their phone and looking surprised to find both of you there. Your partner had asked them to come. This time, nobody would be allowed to control the story alone. Part 4. The person from your past began by saying they only wanted to protect your partner. Your partner calmly asked why they had waited almost 2 years to share the information. They had no clear answer. Their confidence weakened when nobody rushed to defend or attack them. You did not deny the workshop story. You also did not let them turn it into something larger than it was. You stated exactly what you had done, exactly what you had not done, and why the friendship had ended. Speaking openly felt more frightening than silence. But silence had already cost enough. The person admitted they had learned about the rooftop gathering through one friend's public post. They came because they were angry that your life had continued without them. They said they wanted someone else to understand what it felt like to doubt you. For the first time, your partner saw the difference between truth and revenge. After they left, the rooftop became completely quiet. Your partner folded the unsigned lease and placed it back inside the envelope. They said exposing someone else's motive did not repair your choice. You agreed. They told you they could not move forward as if nothing had changed. The apartment plan was over, at least for now. They needed space that did not come with secret tests, sudden appearances, or promises made under pressure. You accepted the decision without bargaining. You asked whether space meant the relationship was finished. They said they did not know yet. In the past, uncertainty would have pushed you into promises you could not prove. This time you told them you would respect whatever answer came later. Over the next several weeks, you stopped trying to create the perfect conversation. You answered questions when they asked them, even when the answers made you uncomfortable. You also began correcting smaller habits, like pretending to agree just to avoid tension. Change appeared through ordinary moments instead of dramatic speeches. They kept their distance, but they noticed. One evening they asked you to meet at the same diner where they had waited alone. You arrived early and chose the booth near the window. You did not order for them because you no longer wanted knowledge to become control. When they arrived, they placed the spare key on the table. Your first thought was that they had come to return it permanently. Then they slid it toward themselves instead of toward you. They said trust had not returned, but the desire to rebuild it had. They did not ask you to move in. They asked you to start again from the place where honesty had failed. No carefully planned meetings and no hidden tests. Just two people deciding, one truthful choice at a time, whether the relationship still had a future. You told them something you had never admitted before. On the night you saw them outside the hospital, you had almost walked away because you were afraid of being rejected. Finding the workshop was not confidence. It was fear disguised as a plan. They said last night had forced them to question every memory, but one detail kept returning. After learning the truth, they could not stop thinking about all the moments when your actions had been kind without any audience present. Those memories did not erase the lie, but they proved the relationship was larger than its beginning. The 2 meals arrived, and neither of you rushed to fill the silence. For once, the silence did not hide anything. It gave both of you room to choose your next words carefully. The future remained uncertain, but uncertainty no longer felt like a threat. Months later, the unsigned lease still remained inside the envelope. Neither of you threw it away, and neither of you treated it like a promise. It became a reminder that love could survive disappointment only when truth stopped arriving too late. The night that almost ended everything became the first night neither of you tried to control what came next.